Tēnā koe, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, this bill addresses the significant biodiversity and the uniqueness of the Kaikoura coast, and it's been very interesting to listen to the speeches so far on it, in particular when the Minister acknowledged and also Andrew Williams acknowledged the Kaikoura Canyon. And in my research of the Kaikoura Canyon, it says that it contains 100 times the biomass of any other equal sort of environment. And that contributes to the orange roughy and hooky industry down there, Mr. Speaker. It's really important that this area is protected, and this marine reserve and the whole bill goes some way to doing that. I'd just like to touch on, the bill talks about kaitiakitanga, and I'd just like to explain the notion of kaitiakitanga. We use the word quite often and assume that people understand what it means. The base word of kaitiakitanga is the word tiaki, which means to care for something. The prefix kai is the equivalent of having er on the end of a word, of an English word. So kaitiaki means a carer or a guardian, and kaitiakitanga means the guardianship. And this bill talks about kaitiakitanga and local leadership. And Mr. Speaker, it's really important that we acknowledge the number of local people who have been involved in this. We've heard of the diverse interests such as the cray fishermen, the fishermen, local iwi. It's really important that we recognise everybody that's been involved in this, in particular the group known as Te Korowai, and Korowai is another Māori word which means a cloak. And they're laying their cloak of guardianship across this area, Mr. Chair. I agree with our colleague Gareth Hughes around the shape of the marine area. Looking at in Schedule 1, it looks similar to a capital F lying on its side and is a 12-sided shape. Mr. Chair, not having been part of the deliberations at that stage on the select committee, it sort of made sense to me looking at things now that point F in Schedule 1 could well have been connected directly to point E, which would have taken out 8 sides of that irregular shape, or at the very least point M connected to point J and then J to E, which would have reduced the weird shape of it, of the marine area. And as Gareth Hughes has pointed out, having such a long boundary around this marine reserve, it sort of dilutes the effect of having such a large reserve. So I don't understand why it is in this shape. I wasn't part of the deliberations. I'm sure there was a very good reason why it's in the shape it is. Mr. Chair, the whale sanctuary. I think we need to just go back a bit and examine New Zealand's history around whaling, and which brings us forward into why at this time we need a whale sanctuary. Apparently Māori used to hunt whales, although very irregularly. I don't know how they managed to do it on the small waka that we would have paddled around in, and I don't know how they would have harpooned, but certainly Māori partook of the bounty when a stranded whale washed up on the shore. In fact, because they subsided on such a paltry diet of crayfish and oysters and kinners and wood pigeons and berries and things, when a whale washed up on the beach, they would have probably thought all their matarikis had arrived at once. There's a very famous story up north in Ahipara when one tribe was living up on the top of a quite impregnable pa by the name of Whangatauatia, and another tribe was down below on the beach wondering how they could get these other guys to come out, when they hit upon the idea of killing and skinning a number of dogs and sewing the skins together, wrapping them around some sort of frame in the shape of a whale, and made it look like a whale was beached partway up 90 Mile Beach. And the people in the pa came racing out and subsequently got dispatched, as we did in the day. Mr Chair.
Calvin Davis.
It just goes to show, Mr Chair, that Māori had interest in whale meat. 10 tonnes of protein turning up on your doorstep was considered a bounty. Mr Mallard, I would have no idea what it tastes like. The other two points I'd like to make are around the mātaitai. Now, we also talk about mātaitai and taiapure, and people don't really know what they are, so I'd just like to spell it out. A taiapure is a local management tool established in an area that has customarily been of special significance to an iwi or hapu as a source of food or for spiritual or cultural reasons, and this is spelt out under Section 174 of the Fisheries Act. Taiapure can be established over any area of estuarine or coastal waters to make better provisions for rangatiratanga and for the rights secured under Article 2 of the treaty. Taiapure provisions are contained within Sections 174 to 185 of the Fisheries Act. All fishing, including commercial fishing, can continue in a taiapure, and this tool offers a way for tangata whenua to become involved in the management of both commercial and non-commercial fishing in their area. A mātaitai is slightly different. Mātaitai reserves are areas where the tangata whenua manage all non-commercial fishing by making bylaws. The bylaws must apply equally to all individuals. Mātaitai reserves may only be applied for over traditional fishing grounds and must be areas of special significance to the tangata whenua. Generally, there is no commercial fishing within mātaitai reserves. Just to go back slightly to whaling and the reason why we need to have the whaling sanctuary. In the 1800s, it was estimated there were some 70,000 southern right whales around, in the southern hemisphere. By the 1920s, there was estimated to be just 500 left. In all of the southern hemisphere, there is an estimated over 2 million whales that had been slaughtered in the southern hemisphere, Mr Chair. This shows that this demonstrates the reason why we need to have these whaling sanctuaries, so we can try and do our small part of making sure the whale population regenerates. We know now that instead of trying to make money out of commercial whaling, it's better to protect them and allow economies like those in Kaikoura to make money through people going and whale watching. I mean, when we explore what happened to whales, the parts of the whales were used for such essential items as making corsets and headwear, and I believe flexible riding whips was another reason whale bone was used. The oil was used to lubricate machinery and things like that, and it's just an utter waste and an utter travesty, which is why this marine reserve is such an essential thing. Kia ora.
Euheni Sage.
Thank you. Please take a call on the Kaikoura Titai o Marokura Marine Management Bill.